Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're doing well. Today, I have with me Garth from GOATi, a really awesome startup that's working in the gaming space. I think gaming is going to be a huge avenue for adoption for blockchain and crypto tech. So Garth, welcome to the channel, my friend.
Cool, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I think the first place to start is just to give folks a little bit of background about who you are, how you got into the space, and what you do, what you're most passionate about.
Yeah, sure. So I started in video games 22 years ago.
Mhm.
That was always kind of an unknown career that I would have loved to have wanted to fall into, but I kind of fell into it and found my dream job.
Beautiful.
Um, I guess like it's kind of interesting. Like my early start in gaming, game development, kind of aligned with my interest in esports and interest in new business models for games. So
Mhm.
yeah, it was pretty early on in my career when I kind of got tapped on the shoulder and kind of got told off for putting like a similar looking Coke can thing into a game, and I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm getting in trouble for putting branding in the game, and they should be paying us to put branding in the game.
Mhm.
It was around that time Counter Strike came out, the first version of Counter Strike, and yeah, I just saw like the level of interest in the office, though the level of competitive play, like it just amped from playing Quake 3 to that. It's like, man, this is next level, like esports or a thing. So I always kind of had in my mind that I wanted to do gaming in a different way. I wanted it to be I wanted to engage a larger audience. I wanted to be played online. I wanted it to be a sport where people can join in from all around the world, be competing, sort of like an F1. So we're doing a racing game, like an F1 of the digital space, right? So without going too much into it, essentially we knew that we needed, like I knew from back then, we needed a new kind of finance model for that. Like the current fiat currency finance model is not going to work. Like having someone from America, Brazil, Australia, or putting money into some sort of escrow bank account,
Yeah.
and then us paying out fees. It's just, I mean, there's a whole lot of complexity. Not to mention like loss of money through transactions, but like even just holding on to that much money, you get declared to be a bank under sort of financial government law. It's like, well, I
Yeah.
don't want to. I don't want to be a bank. I want to be an esports kind of
Yeah.
person. So yeah. Anyway, this kind of initial idea really branched out into needing. We can talk about this more later, but needing crypto. And so when crypto came along, I was like, oh man, this is the thing we needed. Like we were kind of hoping to the technology gods that would bring us a solution, and they delivered.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's music to my ears that there are, I guess established game devs and in gaming industry natives that understand the synergy between crypto token technologies, not even ones that are used to buy things, but even things that are like in-game items, making
Mm-hmm.
collectibles more native to technology than just sort of a hollow piece of code in a game that you look at and then you forget about, something that
Yeah.
lives outside, almost lives outside of the game.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I think that's super
Yeah.
powerful. And so
Yeah.
obviously that's where you started to take this with GOATi, I would assume.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, as you kind of pointed out there with NFTs, like one thing led to another. The first thing that happened with Bitcoin was, we kind of jumped in pretty early and installed the first Bitcoin miners to check this new thing out.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, I turned it off and didn't collect many tokens, but
Yeah.
because I was too busy working. But that was just kind of the first thing, and then with smart contracts, through Ethereum and whatever. So like that was the next level where it's like, you know what, this brings it back even more to what I was originally dreaming it could be. Where again, to take it back to like the real world. I mean, the real physical world exists like this. So you've got sports happening, people are competing. There's prize money, there's sponsors involved. Sponsors want to put assets into a sport and then get some sort of report back and track value. So that's all that can all be handled through smart contracts. Obviously, there's more
Hmm.
transparency around that, and then some kind of beautiful things like, say, in baseball, like there might be the baseball that was kind of the home run kind of winning ball of final innings, and then that gets like autographed and signed and some official document along with it to say, yes, we promise that this is the ball, not just another ball, because we couldn't find the original ball. So it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this exists. Like NFTs and smart contracts give you this like out of the box. Like you don't, like you've got transparency on, like, this is the car that was raced by this person in
Hmm.
this race. It's on the blockchain. It's an NFT. They can sell it to you. Now you've got that in your garage, and you can prove that it is what it is. It's just, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. There's so many layers of beauty to this. It's just amazing.
Yeah, yeah, I'm totally with you. I'm totally with you. And I think, there's an element to it too where like I remember as a kid playing, and I won't even say kid, I was even a teenager still playing. I used to play RuneScape. I loved that game. It was,
Yep.
it's one of those things where it's like it's not the fanciest. It's actually in many ways kind of an ugly game, but there's so many interesting things you can do on it. And you can just
Mm,
mindlessly walk around and do stuff. But I
yeah.
remember always being like, I don't really trust that how rare certain items are. Like, I don't trust the math. Like, I feel like they say you can get this stuff. They say that you can find this item here, but I've never found it. And I don't have any way to verify the
Mm,
math behind it is actually what you say it is. Like,
yep.
ultra rare doesn't say a whole lot, right? So
Yeah.
I was so excited about the idea that blockchain based games could start to match with verifiable random functions so people could say if the game dev says this shows up 1 out of 1 million times when you show up at this spot, right?
Hmm.
I can they can prove to me that the math roll is actually happening behind the scenes and I can actually see it. Like there's a
Yep.
little like another level of transparency into a game that I think people would appreciate.
Yeah. Well, not to mention, just from the game dev point of view, I mean, it's totally valid for you to have this experience where you feel like they're lying to you because, I mean, you ask anyone that's worked on games, the games ship like with a million bugs in them, right? So
Hmm.
there's all kinds of, we kind of compare it sometimes to like a closet that's just like packed full of stuff, and you kind of close the doors and you hope it doesn't bust open,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's the stable build that goes out. It's like anyways, but like the whole point of verifiable randomness and events that you say this is what happens, because yeah, you could walk into that room a million times and just get an unlucky roll a million times, whereas someone could walk into that same
Yeah.
room twice and get lucky twice, right?
Yeah.
So if you can verify that, you're like, you know what, I was just super lucky, I was just unlucky. It's all on chain. You can check it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think this is, I say this a lot, and this is the reason I was so excited to talk to you is that I think this is the place where, like, I think tech pulled gaming into the mainstream, but I think
Hmm.
gaming is gonna pull crypto into the mainstream early on. Like, there will
Yep.
be other use cases, and there are, but I think the ones that are just naturally ready would be gaming. Like, I just think
Yep.
that there's a perfect storm brewing. And that being said, there's you can see the poster in the back. You guys have a game that
Hmm.
integrates some of this tech. Would you mind sharing with folks like what that's all about and how everything works?
Yeah, sure. I mean, first I'll speak to your comment about gaming pulling people into the blockchain.
Hmm.
I mean, it totally makes sense. I mean, I'll be honest that a lot of gamers and tech people are still a bit sort of wary of blockchain. There are a lot of
Yeah,
sort of Ponzi scheme ICOs that happened,
totally.
and
Yeah,
it's a shame because it really kind of tarnished a little bit the reputation of a fantastic technology. But anyway, we can sort of polish that tarnish off.
yeah,
But anyway, look at gaming anyway has been growing exponentially year on year, like on sort of Windows and Mac sort of based PCs, Linux even, but obviously consoles and mobile is a big one. So all those things combined are all growing. So and then COVID happened, and now everyone's inside. So this massive explosion in gaming that's like sales, downloads of games, daily active users on different games, viewing hours on Twitch and YouTube. Like some of those are 20 to 200% growth numbers, and that's growth numbers on top of already massive numbers, right? So if like
hmm,
it's like 100 was it 138 billion dollars in 2018? I think it was like 150 something billion dollars the gaming market in 2019. Like it's huge, and
yeah,
it's growing exponentially, right? So anyway, but to kind of go back to the game side of things, people who've been playing games for a long time, like you mentioned, they put a lot of time into getting assets in games, like grinding to get the sword or the armor or the car or whatever it is, and then they play with it for a while and have a good time, and then they can't sell it and they can't transfer it to someone. They can't give it to a friend. I mean,
hmm,
it goes against the grain of everything we know in the physical world about owning a property. If I buy a car from Honda, I can drive it for a while. If I'm done with it, I can sell it or
yeah,
give it, like
yeah,
to my mom or whatever. Like it's my thing. So I think the gaming world is huge and it wants this. it needs this. It's just a case of us bringing it to them in a very easy fashion, right? So sort of making it as accessible as possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the next generation, very much so, of what games. I think honestly, games were kind of intended to go this route in the first place, and I think there were a lot of games
Mm.
who tried to do it, but it didn't work out the same way. I don't think because it just
Yep.
wasn't there yet.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
So you
but
asked
yeah,
me about our sort of what we're doing with
yeah,
blockchain. Um, yeah, maybe I'll kind of start with like when, as I said, we kind of downloaded one of the first Bitcoin miner applications like yonks ago, and then what was that, like 7 years ago? It was a long time ago. But it was about 3 years ago. I kind of like knew or blockchain wasn't ready for what we needed yet. But it
hmm
was a few years ago. I was talking to Bill, who's one of the moderators on the Phantasma channel. Oh, so he wasn't then, I should say, but I was talking
hmm
to him. He's a tech guy with 20 odd years with Oracle and all this kind of database backend stuff. And I was
yeah,
talking to him one night about my dream for gaming, and he was blowing his mind. He's like, "Oh man, like you're so right." And he was talking about his stories with gaming. He's like, "Man, we need to do this." And he's like a man on a mission. Like we have chatted to him on the channel, but he's like 120%,
totally,
active man. And anyway, so he went on to a whole lot of different channels, talking to a whole lot of different people, and got referred on here and there and everywhere. And then I started going out and speaking to some of these people as well. And it was kind of initially kind of struck me as a bit strange that a lot of the blockchains weren't thinking the way we were thinking about what games needed from blockchain. I think people were
hmm
still getting used to what was already kind of happening in blockchain with CryptoKitties and whatever else, and not thinking kind
yeah,
of next gen. Whereas we had that beauty of thinking about gaming and new business models for gaming as of like 20 years ago.
yeah,
So we'd spend a lot of time thinking about what we needed, right? So we had this kind of fresh perspective. So yeah, I won't mention project names, but I met with a lot of different projects to talk about the technology we needed. And I was shocked to hear a lot of like, yeah, no, we can't do that, can't do that. No, you can't do that. It's
yeah.
like, oh, I understand it. I understand that if we can't do that. But what I'd like to hear is, yeah,
How
that's
can we get
awesome.
there?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's make it,
Yeah,
and that kind of brought us eventually to Phantasma. And uh, Sergio, who's the tech guy behind that, Sergio Flores, he came from a similar background of doing kind of gaming and wanting to use blockchain for games. So anyway, he had the same
yeah,
mentality as we had. So not only would he say, yeah, that's what we're building, that's what we're going to build, yep, we're going to support that, or that's a great idea, we should definitely do that as well. You know what I mean? So that's kind of
yeah.
how Phantasma and GOATi came together.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I mean, Phantasma has a really dedicated group of fans and also community members. I think it's more than just people who are fans of the project, but people who want people to know about, especially the focus on making gaming possible, the new non-fungible token standard that they've come up with, sort of natively making the network perfect for this type of use case,
Yep.
speed and cost wise. Like doing the same thing. I have a friend who's building a game on Ethereum, and even if you're using the new like ERC 1155, like the blended token standard by Engine, which is fantastic by the way,
Mm.
just the nature of the Ethereum network being congested and not built for this, it's still expensive. Like, this guy's had to
Mm.
get funding multiple times to keep building because it costs money to just put mainnet deployments out and try it, make sure it works, go
Yeah.
back and fix things, whatever. Um, and so, yeah, I can just imagine that Phantasma feels like a really great place to work on this type of thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's exactly to the point, the cost of Ethereum networks. That was obviously the one that we were looking at as
Yeah,
well. And yeah, the congestion on the network and the cost, like that was two big absolute no-nos for us. Like that's massive, massive risk
yeah,
and financial burden. We can't wear that. And we don't want to pass that cost or that burden on to players.
and that's what
That's not,
happens.
and that's what happens, and that's not fair, right? So yeah, like as a contrast, like our minting fees are like with Phantasma are like instant. So I can talk about that a little bit more later, but they're instant, and then they're basically so free that they're free basically.
Yeah,
So and if you kind of hold Sol, you can generate the energy token for those anyway. So but we've actually developed our own platform. This is almost like a separate topic, but we needed to get our game out in a way that people could access it and get updates. So we started making this thing just for ourselves called Pavilion, and that's what we've been using to distribute our game. And we're going to do it. Well, we've basically got a deal where if anyone comes on board for our platform, we just will. The tokens are so, the NFTs are so free, so cheap to mint anyway, that we'll just do it for you. Like, no one pays, so you can. Yeah. Anyway, and there's the other thing about minting on demand. So you don't need to make a token, and like with Ethereum, you have to bring in money to then make an NFT and then sell the NFT. With this chain, it's built beautifully that you don't have to make the NFT first. Somebody can pay for it,
and
then we can make it, and then we make it and we give it to the person who bought it. It just makes total sense.
Yeah, and so I mentioned, I think where this video came from actually is a few weeks back, I read about Pavilion, and I had at that point I hadn't heard about GOATi yet. Obviously, I knew Phantasma existed. I knew that this was something that was on their radar, but I didn't know to this extent. And people in the comments obviously showed up and were telling me about GOATi, about the game, and about what's going on. So, because I'm excited about it, I would love for you to share with people why it's so cool. Like, could you tell people like what Pavilion is and why you guys built it?
Yeah, sure. Actually, because you kind of mentioned the point there about like what we've done in gaming. I think I should mention that first, actually.
Go for it.
Yeah, so as I started in games 22 years ago, working with a company in Melbourne. That's where I am now in Australia, in Melbourne. Worked for a company called Tantalus. We did South Park Rally was the first game I worked on PS1 and 64. Then did a couple more games with them, and then went to Germany, worked on the first Far Cry at Crytek in 2002, 2001, 2003, around then. And then came back and worked at Infogrames and Atari and Chrome Studios doing like I was a lead artist on a Transformer project and did a couple of Transformers projects and some Star Wars projects and a whole bunch of kind of big projects. So one thing I should mention is we're a small team, but we're like a small team of like AAA developers who kind of have a grand vision. And sort of know what AAA studios want is what I kind of want to say. So we're not like 200, 300, 400 people, but we know what AAA studios need, which is kind of why we've integrated this stuff in a very AAA friendly way. With Pavilion, I mean, it's essentially like the best kind of way to describe it is like Steam. Basically, we're just trying to kind of replicate a simple Steam experience, maybe make it even easier in Steam if we can. So people can jump in. You don't have to own Bitcoin or Ethereum or anything else. You can, or you don't have to. You can make an account. You can bring your own Phantasma wallet in and connect that to Pavilion. You can sort of own and hold the WIF if you want. You can even, like for a new user, this is kind of where it gets more exciting, is if you come in as a gamer, you can just make a Pavilion account. We can make a WIF for you. We can store it securely for you. So you don't have to worry about that if you don't want to, if that's something that's kind of making you nervous as a regular gamer. You can secure that with a password. And then from there, it's just kind of pretty regular experience. You jump in, you can use credit card to buy GOATi tokens, which you then transact with. GOATi tokens are a Phantasma chain token that's like pegged to the US dollar, so it's a stable currency. Or you can use up to 34 cryptocurrencies to buy those tokens as well. That's basically it. You can add funds to your account, you go buy games, buy NFTs, and all that. So
beautiful,
easy, yeah.
And so your game is available on Pavilion, and basically the idea is that in the future, other things that you develop and maybe other developers could put games on Pavilion, and this would sort of be the Web3 version of Steam.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's kind of funny. Like I said before, we never intended to make Pavilion. It was like, it was almost an afterthought. We do driver training, like educational simulation packages. So for that, we give like a back-end license, download patcher, launcher tool to other sort of simulation studios who want to just run this for their businesses. So we just thought to ourselves, okay, we just take that we use for corporate clients, and we'll just kind of put a little front end on it to connect your wallet. That's it, But then we started working with it, and the community loved it. So we just kind of added feature. So it just became a platform. So yeah, the reason why I bring that up is it's kind of funny because we just kind of end up with this platform because it's what we needed. Which is, if you go back, that's kind of similar to Steam. So Steam started the same way. Like, they made Garth made Half-Life 2, and they wanted to distribute it digitally, and they're like, well, no one's got that, so we just build what we need. We'll build all the tools and features that we need, get it perfect. And then it kind of dawned on them, maybe, I don't know how early it was in their sort of product schedule, but I think it kind of dawned on them at some point through user request, like, can we put our game on Steam as well? So they kind of open it up. So we're kind of, through no fault or no plan of our own, we're kind of following, or hopefully we're following the same trajectory, or at least in the early stages. So we are speaking to some other developers that we know already to bring their games in. But we just want to make sure that that tool set's, absolutely kind of perfect for us. Because, like, being developers ourselves, we know if we come into a tool set, we want it to be working as we want it to work. We don't want to deal with your bugs. We want to make sure everything's totally sweet. But yeah, we're already talking to people about opening that up.
Beautiful. And so if I'm someone sitting there and I want to try and play a game, it's super simple. Where can you grab, Pavilion, or get on and set up the game?
Yeah, sure. All right. So you can go to pavilionhub.com. So Pavilion with 2 L's, hub.com. I won't mention another website that people have compared that to, same with P-Hub.
Yeah, all good.
All good. So pavilionhub.com. From there, there's two kind of ways you can interact with it. So you can download it as same as Steam, right? You can download it as a client on your PC, Windows-based PC, or you can run it in the browser and just go into the browser window. You can open Web Store, make an account, do everything in there.
Awesome. And so you guys do have a game in Pavilion.
Yeah.
You want to give people the lowdown on what the game is and how it's integrated with some of these, some of these things that we've talked about. I think the most important thing was to talk about, like, what you guys are doing, where the world's going in gaming and all that. But there is something now, like, that's a live example of this. And so I would love for people to learn about it.
Yeah, sure. I feel like you've asked me this question twice and I've avoided answering it.
We've had so much more impactful things to talk about till now, so it's all good.
So 23 Races series. Where do I start? Because I've already kind of talked about it, kind of an F1 online thing. So that's definitely been our kind of agenda. So keep that for the viewers. Keep that in the back of your mind. So essentially it's kind of a bit of the gameplay stuff. Might as well get into that. So it's a strategy racing game. So we call it a RTS racing. So it's less about just kind of keeping a perfect line through every corner. It's got some resources, and you got to spend those to upgrade your vehicle in real time. So it's got a very different, I won't go into all the details, but it's got a very different take on what racing can be. Not to mention that it's got really extreme racing tracks that are all sort of curved and tubed and up and down and looped and stuff like that, but all using real physics. So I won't go into the details of the physics stuff, but it's all real physics, so it's kind of pretty cutting edge, cool. But in terms of the integration stuff, so obviously we have vehicles on the chain, so that's one of the cool things. So you can have a vehicle, and those vehicles are actually made up. It's like, if you go into Pavilion, you can inspect those packs, like we talked about transparency, but each vehicle has got 25 different unique NFTs that make up each vehicle NFT. So you can buy the parts as a parts pack. It's kind of like, we compare that to like a sort of basketball training pack kind of thing. So you buy a pack, you can open up, you get all your parts out of it. You can use those to construct a vehicle. There's a game license as well as an NFT. So that also comes with the vehicle in game that you can play with. So you don't have to buy the part packs if you don't want. They're just more for if you want to start the trading side of things. So we've got the game licenses and NFT, so you can play it. You can enter tournaments with it. That's coming very soon. And then if you're done with it, or you can give it to a friend if they want to check it out. You can just pass it to their wallet. They pass it back. No problem. Nice. You can sell it on if you want. Another cool feature we're adding to the NFTs for licenses is, because we're thinking about, well, what are the other advantages that blockchain gives you other than just having a game license as an asset? But we thought, well, one of the great things is that it's tracked on the chain with a date of minting. So each sort of minting date, or each year or quarter, can give you other bonuses and rewards. So the longer you hold a license, or the older your license is, the more event entry tokens you get to kind of compete for prize money. Yeah. So what else to see? You've got the NFTs on chain. You've got vehicles on chain, vehicle parts on chain, and we've got some more stuff coming up with community created events and stuff like that. But we
That's
can talk about
awesome.
that sort of stuff. Yeah, we'll talk about that stuff when it launches, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll have to do this again for sure as this stuff develops. You know, I know it's like a mile a minute, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that game sounds really cool. I've got to try it. It's on my list of things to do. I don't have as
Yeah.
much time set aside for gaming as I used to.
You got to change that, man. You
I
got to change
know,
it.
I know. So
Good stress relief.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's great stress relief. So I'll definitely try out the game, and I encourage folks that are watching to do the same. Again, you can find that on Pavilion Hub. But from my own personal, um, I guess curiosity, I was curious how the experience has been developing on Phantasma Tech. Is
Hmm.
the is the developer community tooling reasonable? What's the experience been like for you and your team?
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, what I would say is the reason why we came in with them pretty early before anyone else is that we have like a really good, solid AAA kind of tech team who
Hmm.
would come in and help to build some of those tools. So when we came in, some of that stuff wasn't written, but that's why we came in to help produce some of that
Yeah.
stuff. So in terms of us working with their blockchain to help get that done, it's been fantastic. I mean, they had a great underlying tech,
Hmm.
and then we would come in and would say, look, we need to do this kind of thing for what we need to do with this AAA gaming.
Hmm.
We need like fast tokens, like super fast minting. We need them to be done this way, all that sort of stuff. They were very responsive. So because they're already on board, that this is what they want as well. So if they didn't have it, they
Hmm.
would build it. So from that point, it's been amazing. The development team and the community are absolutely like engaged 1,000%. So
Hmm.
yeah, the amount of people who've been coming on to help out through not just with us, but with the wallets and the ghost market. And we haven't even talked about the marketplace. I didn't mention that. We should mention the marketplace, um,
Sure.
but the amount of people who come in to help out with that sort of stuff has just been like mind-boggling. So it's like there's not just one person doing it. There's like a whole community of people. We all sort of take on, our own bits. And as you can sort of see, like we're not like a big sort of PR marketing team who are out there sort
Yeah.
of posting partnerships. Like we're there because we believe in the tech and what it can do. So that just brings with it the side of community who want to develop and help to build this.
Yeah, and that's what I like about it's not just the Phantasma community. It's there are a lot of communities like this in crypto where the team that is building this open source stuff, and to an extent the closed source stuff, they don't have to market it because if it's cool enough, people will evangelize it on their own. It's like
Mm,
I almost never hear about the coolest stuff from the people who are building it. That's just kind of the way it goes.
yeah,
Um, and it's almost like a badge of honor, I would say. But yeah,
yeah,
I do want to ask you about the marketplace. It's something that's cool too. So let's talk about it. So
yeah, sure.
what do people have to know about it?
Um, so so Vincent Genest, I actually don't know if I'm pronouncing his surname correctly, and Merle, the other two Phantasma community guys who have built that.
Mhm.
It's pretty awesome. So I mean, what I should mention is that there's the Phantasma blockchain and the Neo and everyone knows Neo blockchain. So the marketplace actually works with both, so you can actually move tokens between the two. And then there's Ethereum interoperability coming very soon. I won't mention a date on that, but that's coming very soon as well. So this is
Cool.
essentially a marketplace for three different blockchain technologies. There's already thousands of it's called Ghost Market. So
Mhm.
is it Ghost Market IO? I think it's .io, but do a Google
I
search,
think
you'll
it is
find it. But
.io if I remember correctly.
yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. But it's also in Pavilion as well. So if you go inside Pavilion, it's our core marketplace. Yeah, so essentially, yeah, you can own NFT assets and buy them, sell them as you like, move them between chains.
Mhm.
Uh, it's super cool. Like, yes, I mean, go check it out. It's the best way to do it. But like lots of filtering options and selling options in different currencies. It's super cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I'll link up this stuff below. I'll go and do the
Yeah,
work to make sure everything's spelled correctly and find it, and I'll put them in the description.
yeah.
The last thing I was going to leave you with is I can't remember who it was that I was talking to, and this is my own fault because I'll have an amazing conversation with someone, and then I'll have 15 other ones, and then it gets lost who exactly it was. But
Yep.
there was a thought that this type of space, NFTs and non-fungible tokens in general, collectibles on chain, starting to blend with the world of DeFi, right? Starting to
Mhm.
have this digital property treated almost like physical property, right? You can do lending with your NFTs as collateral,
Yep.
things like that. You can do,
Yep.
you know, even to an extent, arbitrage on collectibles that change in value rapidly. Like I
Mm.
think that there's so many more little integration points between what's being done now with collectibles and what, other people like the other side of the industry are really excited about. um, I think people are either really excited about new finance and other people are very excited about like new use cases and
Mhm.
like the consumer side of tech, like gaming. But I think there's a lot of places where those two things meet also.
Mm.
And so I would challenge people watching to just think about how what Garth and I talked about today can match up with some of the other things that are going on in the space because I think there's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I'll kind of mention, it's surprisingly simple, is that crypto and NFTs relate back to the real world so well that you can just kind of think to yourself, like, how do things kind of operate in the real world? And
Mhm.
blockchain will do that in the same way, like you mentioned with collateral, right? So in the real world, if you want to borrow money, you borrow it against a house,
Mhm.
for example, right? You borrow it against land. You borrow it against some asset. So, or if you
Mhm.
want to get a small chunk of money, you might go to a pawnbroker, right,
Yeah.
and put down a gold watch as collateral for that. So, I mean, it's super simple to think about. Like, if what happens in the real world is going to be what's happening in crypto. So, yeah, absolutely, people are going to be putting down their NFT assets as collateral and borrowing against it. I mean, that's just a absolute no brainer. Yeah, if
For sure.
again, just think about what happens in the real world, and that's how it can operate, and that's how it will operate.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen, and obviously, it's been a pleasure talking to someone who's building out something in such a burgeoning space, which is obviously gaming related to blockchain tech. So,
Yeah,
thank you for doing that and for sharing it with folks too.
yeah, that's right. I mean, it's always awesome to be at the forefront of some kind of technology, and not for the sake of just being there, but for us, like when your dream of like the next generation of gaming business model aligns with next gen technology, it's a fantastic thing when those things align. So we're happy to be helping out and happy to be sharing information with you on your channel, man. I
Absolutely.
appreciate
Thanks
I
so much.
appreciate I appreciate you being there to put this information out as well. It's awesome.
100%. Yeah, this is what I live for, man. This is awesome stuff. And so, really quickly before we sign off, where can folks find you? Social presence, or even just GOATi? Where can they find your company?
Yeah. Okay. So the two best places to go would be, well, in terms of the website, so 22racingseries.com.
Hmm.
So 22 Racing Series, we'll put the link in the thing.
Yep.
Pavilion Hub, we already mentioned. And then we're probably most active on Twitter. So
Cool.
yeah, just search for 22 Racing Series on Twitter or Go Entertainment and you'll find us. And we push out updates. Like you said, like the people who are developing this stuff aren't pushing out updates every 5 minutes because we're busy building the
Building.
stuff,
Yeah.
but we push out announcements every week or so of like the new tech that's coming along. So if you follow us, you'll find out about the new tech that's happening for sure.
Awesome. Awesome. Garth, well, it's been a pleasure, my friend. And let's definitely do this again. As things go on.
Yeah, man.
Maybe once there's more stuff going on in the gaming space, we can chat about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like yeah, in this space, every few months there's a massive milestone getting hit. So
Yep.
yeah,
For sure. For sure,
well,
man. Well, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic rest of your day. And Garth, thanks again.
yeah. Cheers, mate, and you have a good day as well. And I hope your viewers have a fantastic day too.
Right on. Cheers, guys.